right now. Avodah Zarah, for the people that are online, the screen is about to share with you guys. In the meantime, hear me out and listen. Avodah Zarah 20b. We see, I'll read it, I'll say it to you guys in English. From here, Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair would say, this is how you attain Ruach HaKodesh. Torah study, person learns Torah, leads to care in the performance of mitzvahs. If I'm learning Torah, I'm learning Shulchan Aruch, I'm learning Torah, it's inspiring me, I'm getting connected to Hashem, this is going to lead to the performance of mitzvot, right? Then when a person's doing the performance of mitzvot, it's going to lead to diligence in their observance. I'm going to be careful in how I observe. And diligence is going to lead to cleanliness of the soul, okay, which we're going to discuss. Cleanliness of the soul is going to lead to abstention from all evil. Once I've purified my soul, I'm totally now on guard from staying away from anything that could be negatively affecting my neshama. Abstention from evil leads to purity, right? Now we're a person who's got purified himself from everything negative. And then when you do that, that eliminates all of the base desires, all the physical things that a person goes through that has physical desires that take you away from the neshama, so to speak. That's part of the process of getting rid of that. Purity, once you have purity, leads to piety, saintliness. And saintliness leads to humility. Because once a person is so plugged into Hashem, and you're now fully focused on anything I can do to just get close to Hashem, and totally staying away from anything negative, and totally working on all my base physical needs that I need in my life from a physical level, right? Now you realize the humility, how humble you are. No honor, no nothing, just all Hashem. You are the king, I am nothing. It's pure humility. Humility leads to fear of sin, right? Now I'm on guard for anything I do, every step I make, every thought that I do. Think about that, how deep you have to get into this. Every little thing I do, everything I look at, everything I touch, everything I smell, I taste, I am so on guard. Fear of sin leads to holiness. Once you're in that state, you're just completely kadosh. And then once you get to that state of holiness, it leads to the divine spirit. Now you can get Ruach HaKodesh. And then it says that once you have divine spirit, that leads to the resurrection of the dead, which means a person can actually resurrect people. This is from the Gemara. Now, let's take a look at it. I put them side notes on the side. Let's go through it again. Because now you're going to see something very interesting. These 10 are brought about also, as we're going to see, in the book called Mesilat Yesharim. You guys know that? Path of the Just, right? One of the most famous Musar books, or so you think it is. But let's take a look at it one more time. Studying Torah leads to carefulness, not to violate the law, leads to diligence, obeying every commandment, then leads to cleanliness, live a clean life in thought and in deed. Thought is very important. By the way, thought is connected to Ruach, so your thoughts are very much connected to that. Abstention, once that happens, right? You're going to avoid anything that's even permissible. Think about that for a second. How many people think that, oh, the Shulchan Aruch says it's permissible, I could do it. And yet there's like this white gray line, like maybe I shouldn't really do that. And there's many instances of that. So even something that even is permissible, and that could lead you to do something wrong, you stay away from that. That's abstention. That leads to purity, purifying himself from all evil. Piety, dedicating himself to God far beyond the call of the law. Just because the law says this, I want to have even more stringencies. Why? Because I want to create more fences. Why? Because I don't want to disconnect myself from Hashem on such a level when you're on that high of a state. And then from purity leads to piety. And then piety is humility, and that's the complete negation of the ego, like we mentioned before. And that leads to fear of sin, which is the clear perception of good that he literally dreads sin. He hates sin. He can't handle it. And that leads to holiness, which is a big word, and it's a very difficult word for us regular human beings. But this is literally the path, according to the Gemara, total negation of the physical. Meaning, you'll find people that fast all week, right? There are people that negate their physical desires just to plug into the neshama. It's a level, okay? It's a level. Going back to Mesilat Yesharim, which everybody goes, this is a Musar book. Everybody knows? So Rav Kaplan goes, you guys don't know. I love it because he says it so like nonchalant. He's like, few realize that this book, Mesilat Yesharim, was originally made as a handbook for people who want to start out to enter the highest realms of enlightenment. If you want to achieve Ruach HaKodesh, guess what? Read Mesilat Yesharim. Who knew? So people look at it as a Musar book. The end goal of this whole book is for you to be in a high state of meditative consciousness connected to Hashem. Who knew that? A lot of people don't know that. Fascinating. And we know that this is connected to the 10 Sfirot. So basically, through the 10 Sfirot is the mechanism that Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto is using the Sfirot as a mechanism to connect them to these specific character traits that we spoke about. Now, Rav Chaim Vital, the main student of the Arizal, he says in Shari Kedusha as follows. He's like giving you better news. Okay, relax. You don't have to do all 10. He says you can attain this level of sanctification. How do you do it? Torah study and literally hard work on your Torah study without resorting to any other practice. See it right there. If you learn a lot of Torah, Rav Chaim Vital says you can attain Ruach HaKodesh, which is good news because you might think, oh my God, I have to do all these specific things. And then take a look at this. This is from Taneh de Be'eliyahu Rabbah, in the Midrash. Beautiful message. Happy is the person who sets themselves as an ox to the yoke and as a donkey to the burden, and he sits and meditates every day in Torah. Always, immediately, the Spirit of God rests on them. And the Torah gets inside of them. As it's written, oh, everyone who thirsts, come for water. And any mention of water really means Torah. How so? So listen to what it says here. A person reads Torah, prophets, writings, Mishnah, Halachot, Agadot, and Midrash, all the different aspects of the Torah. And he spends much time sitting and little time in business. Immediately, the Spirit of God is within that person. If a person's learning Torah nonstop, all these different types of Torah that we're talking about here, right? And when that happens, and a person's so immersed in it, it says, and his message are in that person's tongue, as it's written, the Spirit of Hashem has spoken through me. I mean, I'm learning Torah, I'm saying it out loud. I'm literally just saying God's words, okay? When that happens, it says, happy is the person that plays with the words of the Torah and sits and chews on them like an animal that chews the cud on the field. This is an incredible message because there's a whole aspect of meditation on just taking a pasuk, for example, and recycling that pasuk and saying it over and over and over and over and over until it's so enveloped within you that literally it takes your brain and takes you to high states of consciousness. It's the same source. A person who chews the words of Torah and over again and repeating it and repeating it. This is where this is from. Say again? Shinantam? Meaning to Shinantam. Oh, Veshinant. Oh, Shina. Yes. Chewing. Good. So it's a very interesting idea, but here you're seeing something else. You want to get Ruach HaKodesh? Learn a lot of Torah. Learn a lot of Torah. But then we have an either easier path. The Mechilta in Shmot says, if an individual accepts upon himself even one commandment with perfect faith, perfect emunah, he becomes worthy of Ruach HaKodesh. So now we're making it even easier now. What's interesting is you're seeing why Rav Kaplan is showing is like, look, as I'm interpreting it and I see it, Rav Kaplan is saying, you're like, look, the Gemara was like, you need to do all of this. That's one. I saw Rav Chaim Vital. He had another in Sharei Kodesh Kedusha. He puts a whole massive paragraph similar to what the Gemara says, but more in depth, more things to do that you have to do with Kedusha and holiness, like going to the mikvah every day, as an example of other things, right? Rabbi Kaplan's like, look, but there's other places that show you that not necessarily do you even have to do that to attain Ruach HaKodesh. I think there's different levels of Ruach HaKodesh. That's what I believe. And I think that there's obviously going to be people that are going to be in a much higher state because they've completely cleansed themselves out. And there's people that may not be holding there, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be able to get Ruach HaKodesh. You may also still be able to get it. Tana de Beliyahu. Look at this. The prophet Elijah taught his disciples, and here it is. I call heaven and earth to bear witness that any person, look at the word here, guys, any person, Jew or Gentile, man or woman, free man or slave, if his deeds are worthy, if he's a good person and he does all the right things, then Ruach HaKodesh will descend upon him. That's from Eliyahu Hanavi, which shows you once again that this is like level easier now, meaning even people that are just really good people, that have a good heart, that are doing the mitzvot, deeds also means mitzvot, or just, you could say Jew or Gentile. Gentile doesn't even do mitzvot, but he's a good person. Guess what? He can attain Ruach HaKodesh too. And that's the same pasuk that we just learned from the book of Yoel. Hashem says, I'm going to pour out my spirit on all flesh. All of humanity is going to have access to this Ruach HaKodesh. Okay? But this is encouraging because when I read this, I say, okay, so you see that people maybe are not at the highest level spiritually, but they're still able to access Ruach HaKodesh on their level. It's very encouraging. Okay? The Rambam, he says, Rav Kaplan brings a whole extra now sources to support these ideas. So what I did with the Rambam, I kind of like, you could see here, the black lines are kind of like my takes on it, and the top part are going to be what the Rambam says. So let's just talk it out. Rambam says like this: an individual having all the necessary qualifications can delve into the mysteries, the Pardes. You know what the Pardes is? Everybody knows? Everybody here know what Pardes is? No. Pardes is going, so to speak, into the garden. The garden is brought down Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. These are the 4 levels of the Torah. The Pardes is ideally also the secrets going into the higher esoteric worlds. So the Rambam's saying, you can delve into these things, advancing in these deep, subtle concepts and gaining a firm understanding and perception of them. This is how he starts off by saying, how are you going to get Ruach HaKodesh? Now, when I read this, a person wants to get Ruach HaKodesh, it's kind of like Eitzah. This is advice, right? We spoke about different psukim, but now let's talk about it in practicality, right? He's telling you, you want to delve into the mysteries of Pardes. A person wants to get higher consciousness, Ruach HaKodesh, learn other works, not just halacha and pshat. We know how important halacha and pshat is, but sod, the inner dimensions of the Torah, right? That is going to be an incredible methodology to enhance your knowledge, that when you're in the point to start learning how to get Ruach HaKodesh, or you want to attain it through meditation, these things are only going to enhance it. Because if a person actually learns Chassidus, right? You learn Likutei Moharan, you learn Tanya, right? You can learn Rav Kook as an example. You learn all these different types of things. They're talking about these experiences all the time in all these books. So you're just kind of like putting yourself in that mindset. It's flowing through you. They're talking about things conceptually. A person needs to learn that. Of course, learn Chumash. Of course, learn Gemara. Of course, learn the Mishnah. You know, all these things you got to do, but don't be afraid of learning the Sod, especially if you want to attain Ruach HaKodesh, or at least put yourself in a better position to get it. And then, as Rabbi Nachman also talks about, is when you're learning Torah, right? And let's say you came to my class, or you're just learning at home, or you're learning Chumash, whatever it is that works for you. When you're done learning the Torah, it shouldn't be like, oh, okay, done, thanks, okay, let's go something. It's like, take a couple of minutes, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and meditate on what you just learned. Meditate on what you just learned, internalize it. Take the time to do that. That's allowing the Torah to be a part of your inner consciousness. It's literally like, as we say, chewing it. You're chewing it in a way by meditating on it, by thinking about it, by pondering it. What does this mean for me? How can I apply this in my life? That's statement number one. The Rambam says afterwards, at the same time, he must also sanctify himself and separate himself from the ways of the masses who grope in the darkness of the times. He must achieve constant diligence in not even thinking of non-essentials or considering the current vanities and intrigues. I mean, this is the Rambam, what, like 1,000 years ago? Okay? He's telling you, separate yourself from the ways of the masses who grope in the darkness of the times. I mean, 2025 is the hardest generation to live in right now. I mean, I don't have to tell you that we all know that, right? And it's obvious, right? Let's be real, right? You see a lot in the frum kosher world, people have kosher phones, right? We know about that. Why? Because we don't want to have access to social media. It destroys your thoughts, your mind, your brain, what you're thinking about. We know that already. Before that was television. We know that too, right? Being careful in regards to what you're listening to. What kind of music are you listening to? How is that affecting your neshama? Right? We know how much music can impact it, right? Who are your friends? What relationships do you have? Are they bringing you down? Are they really uplifting your soul? What does that look like, right? In avoiding the noise and stimulation that dulls sensitivity to the divine. And I have to break the news to you, even though we're using it right now, but the phone is the biggest problem we have in our generation. It's nothing new. I'm not saying anything new, but if you want to start connecting to the divine on higher levels of consciousness, you got to be careful with the phone. It is what it is, you know. Rav Daniel Katz, teacher of mine, he always said a great line, and it's the greatest teaching. It's like when you wake up in the morning, don't touch your phone. Like before you even do anything, wake up in the morning, obviously wash your hands, learn Torah, meditate for 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, pray, then touch your phone. Because the moment you touch that phone, it knocks your das, your consciousness completely out. Who's calling me? Who's texting me? Look at the news. Mandani won. Has Shalom. By the way, for my New Yorkers, we're going to breathe tonight so we can breathe through what happens tonight because I don't even know. It's a crazy world we're living in, guys. But that's even more of a reason why you need to meditate. So, wait, I see here he won. Yeah. Hashem Yishmor. Hashem Yishmor. Hashem controls also for all the people that are watching. Keep this in mind. Hashem controls. We have to know that. Emunah and faith. If you need to move to Miami, call me. Now, with that being said, the Rambam continues and he says, such a person must work on himself until his mind is constantly clear and directed on high. He has to bind his intellect to the throne of glory, Hashem's throne of glory, striving to comprehend the purity and holiness of the transcendental. You know, when a person is learning Torah and you're meditating and you're speaking to Hashem and you're really focused on these avenues and you start learning the esoteric, the Kabbalah, all these specific things, your mind really can go up high. It really can go up high. It's an amazing thing. And that's what I spoke about before, this idea that every single morning, if you can do this, 10, 15 minutes of meditation, right? When you're saying the Shema, focus on the Shema, say it slowly, right? This is what it's all about. And then obviously also your mouth is a big key because the purity also begins not only with what you're listening to and not only with what you're looking at, but what you're speaking about. Lashon hara is something that knocks you out of consciousness, whether you say something or you hear something. You got to be careful about that. Again, it's all about das. It's all about awareness. The more awareness we have of Hashem, the incredible feelings that we can have of plugging in with Him. And the last part, the Rambam says he must further contemplate on the wisdom of God in each thing, understanding its true significance, whether it be the highest spiritual entity or the lowest thing on earth. Rabbi Nachman, chapter 1 of Likutei Moharan, says the exact same thing. A person has to look for the intelligence in everything. For the intelligence in everything. Right? If I'm walking today, I did my hibodedut and I was walking around in nature and I was like, just look at this tree. Like, look how beautiful. Look at all the details. And then you look at the sky and you're just like in awe of Hashem's nature and wonders. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And when you do that, if you really start plugging in, even right now, as we just spoke about this very bad news that we just said, we just got to keep saying it throughout the whole day. Ein od milvado. There's nothing else but Hashem. That's having consciousness of Hashem. That's being aware of Hashem. The Rambam says, if you're doing everything we just said right now, this individual who does this immediately becomes worthy of Ruach HaKodesh. You're worthy to receive it. And when you attain this spirit, his soul becomes bound up on the level of the angels. And he becomes a completely different person, as I mentioned to you before. He can understand things with a knowledge completely different from anything that he's ever experienced previously. Once you're in that state of Ruach HaKodesh, all of a sudden, you understand why things are happening to you in your life. You're seeing the messages that are coming in from God. Someone will say something to you like, oh, that's he's talking to me, right? You go to a shiur, you go to a Torah class, and like the teacher says something, he's like, oh, he's totally talking to me, right? As an example. That's the meaning of what Rambam says. That's the meaning of what the prophet Shmuel told King Shaul. The Spirit of God shall descend upon you, and when that happens, you're going to be able to prophesize with them, and you're going to be transformed into a different man. Guys, we want to achieve Ruach HaKodesh. We want to achieve these feelings of having higher consciousness to be close to Hashem. How do we do that? What do we say? Ruach, breath, wind. The next point that Rav Kaplan talks about, and I'm going to say that as I was reading through this, again, he loves vocabulary. Like, this is who he is. And my job is to go through these books and try to clarify them the best that I can. So some of this material may be like, oh, okay. But there's an end goal at this game because we're learning very subtle ideas and we try to bring everything home at the end as to give us encouragement to go in this path. We spoke about having Ruach HaKodesh. Guess what happens when you have Ruach HaKodesh? Prophecy. Prophets were meditating daily. This is what they did. Okay? And when we think about prophets, right? They're like the Torah. They're like the bad news bearers. You guys are bad. You guys are bad. You guys are bad. These are the prophets, right? But you don't realize that these were the greatest mystics of all time, right? And they knew very, very in-depth meditative techniques that they went to school for. There was a school of prophecy with 3 million prophets. 3 million prophets during that time frame. It's a lot of people prophesizing. So their job was to get into prophecy and then give off a message to the people. Now, the Kaplan puts this in, and I think it's super fascinating. He says, in mystical traditions, when you look at the Kabbalah, right, they experience specific feelings. They don't even know sometimes how to even describe these out-of-body, higher consciousness experiences. The Kabbalists have difficulty explaining some of these feelings. But the prophets, because we didn't know so much about what their experiences were, we know that one thing's for sure, that they really, if you look at next week's class, we're going to learn about the book of Ezekiel and his vision, right? They had intense meditative states. Like they were so deep into such an incredible state, much even higher even than the Kabbalists. But the Kabbalists, because they have their own methodology of how they do it, they were able. They say that they still have traditions from the prophets that they learned as the traditions came down, and they were the ones who were still giving them off. Now, back to vocabulary, very important because you'll see why prophets, Navi, is all connected with all vocabulary, which deals with higher consciousness and what their job was. Take a look at this. What's the meaning of a Navi? The Navi is a prophet, right? So take a look at it. Navi is related with the same vocabulary, the same root word as Niv. Niv means speech. Navi means from the word Niv, which means speech. The pasuk that he gives you is from the from Isaiah. Boren Niv Sipatayim. I create the Niv, the fruit of the lips. Niv is a concept of speech. So Hashem would send a message to the prophet, and the prophet's job would be to be a Navi, to speak out what he's being told. Take a look at this one. V'aharon achicha ihiyeh nebi echa. Hashem says to Moshe, your brother Aharon, he's going to be your prophet. Moshe was not so good with his speech, but he's like, don't worry. When you go to Pharaoh, guess who's going to be the prophet? Who's going to speak the words? It's going to be Aharon. He's going to be the Nebi Echa. He's going to be the prophet. Rav Kaplan brings Rav Shlomo Pappenheim. And he says that he teaches that the word Navi comes from the word bo. Bo means to come or to bring. The Navi's job, again, the root word bo, means the prophet has to bring spiritual power, a channel through which divine energy flows into the world. He brings this power and he now sends it out to the world. The third interpretation from Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, and he says Navi is related to the word Nava. Nava means to flow, like gushing forth, like a spring of water. Basically, Ruach Elohim is flowing through the prophet, through the Navi, like water emerging from the source. It's a flow of consciousness. So you see the Navi comes from the word Nava, which means to flow. So what Kaplan is just showing you, it's like, this word Navi is really deep. You could see that literally all the characteristics of what a prophet looks like, it's all within the word Navi. Fourth interpretation, Ve'ish, from the book of Eov, Ve'ish navuv ulevav ve'ayer pere adam yivaled. A hollow, navuv means a hollow man will gain heart. What does hollow mean? Somebody who's completely hollowed himself is someone who's emptied out his ego. He's become like a clear pipe that Hashem can send divine Ruach Kodesh right through him. That's a prophet. That's a Navi from the word Navuv. And we know specifically David HaMelech says, Libi halal bikirbi. My heart is hollowed within me. David HaMelech said that at a point in his life when he felt that he was completely nullified his ego completely. Right? Which is the job of a prophecy. We know David HaMelech had Ruach HaKodesh, of course. So we see that that's all connected. Letting go of your ego completely. From the book of Ezekiel, regarding the fact that a prophet can do incredible things in regards to making supernatural things happen, healing people, right? Prophecies can do that. From the book of Ezekiel, Ko amar Hashem Elokim me'arba ruchot boi haruach, keyword, ruach, ubefi becharugim ha'ele vayichu. Yechezkel has this vision of the valley of the dry bones, and it says, the prophecy to the spirit, ruach, from the four winds, come, O spirit, and breathe into these corpses that they may live. What is the big deal with this pasuk, and what are we talking about? Because Rav Kaplan is showing you, we spoke about a Navi deals with the word bo, which means that he can make things happen, to come, to bring out. He can do something. Ruach is the word next to the word boi. So Rav Kaplan is showing you the word Boi and Ruach are together in this pasuk. And what is his job? He's supposed to resurrect all these bones that are in this valley of dry bones, breathe into them and revive all of them. That was the job of this prophet. So you can even resurrect the dead. So you see here that Bo, and then think about also like the famous Parsha, right? Parsha Bo. And Hashem says, right? Bo el Paro, right? Moshe, go to Paro. What was he going to do? Bo. Moshe's like, he's about to unleash he's a prophet. He's about to unleash some supernatural events on Paro right now, right? So that's what Rav Kaplan's trying to bring down. And with this, we'll finish off at least this part of the class, and then we'll do a little quick breathing. The difference between prophecy and mysticism. The mystic experiences, as we spoke about, spiritual states, but it's very difficult to explain it. It's hard to explain what I just went through, right? It's bliss, it's joy, it's wow, but I don't understand. I can't verbalize everything. But a prophet has complete clarity. When a prophet has prophecy, the whole vision is super clear, and he can say everything about that prophecy. As we know, we have the book of prophets, right? All the different prophets have said all these messages that are still around to today, and are still very relevant. That's how amazing the prophecy are, that thousands and thousands of years later, these prophets, these messages that came through them are still relevant in today's time. This last part is super amazing. Should make you think about, for people that had higher states of consciousness, some of these people here I know in this room have, right? Take a look at this. This is super interesting. Prophetic energy can be transmitted. Prophetic energy can be transmitted. I mean, here's an example. When the 70 elders receive prophecy, Hashem tells Moshe, look at this. He says it, I'll just say it in English. I will distill from the spirit that is upon you and place it upon them. God's like, Moshe, you have prophetic energy. Go ahead right now. I'm going to take your prophetic energy and I'm going to put it on these 70 elders right now. They're going to literally blast out of their body. They're going to have prophecy through you, Moshe. That's one example. We know about the other example when Shaul meets these band of prophets, right? Vayabo sham hagiva'ata. The Spirit of God came upon him and he prophesied among them. What is this all about? There's prophets that are literally coming to him. Shaul is not prophesying. He's not doing anything right now. They're coming out to him, and through them, they sent this energy to Shaul, and Shaul was able to have prophecy. Prophets can they can literally say, you're going to have now prophecy, which is an amazing, amazing thing. They can uplift other people to experience prophecy. So if it's possible to find somebody in this world who can help you to achieve prophecy, that's pretty amazing. Can you find somebody like that? I don't know. I'm sure there's people out there that can. So that sums up the actual content of tonight's class.